This is a podcast of Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego. To learn more about how you can support Scripps, visit us online at scripps.ucsd.edu. The intense spotlight cast by the news media has mostly moved on from the Gulf of Mexico since the summer of 2010. From April to August, millions of gallons of oil burst from a damaged BP oil rig in the largest oil disaster in American history. But the science community is moving to a second phase of research in the spill's aftermath. Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego researchers were in the Gulf early in the crisis after the initial explosion, and today continue to monitor conditions under the sea surface. Scripps researchers joined colleagues from around the country to descend on the Gulf to monitor the physics and ecological impact of the leak. The Scripps scientists, many of whom already had contracts with BP to perform research in the Gulf, say the disaster highlighted what science can do in a crisis and what it could have done with a greater national investment in continuous oceanographic monitoring of all American coastlines. John Hildebrand, who leads the Whale Acoustics Laboratory at Scripps, was moved to action after seeing news feeds of oil gushing into the Gulf.
Anyone who was reading the newspapers at that time, you knew that this was a significant event, that the blowout, and the fact that the oil was spilling into the Gulf of Mexico. And so I realized that there was a contribution we could make because we developed this technology for knowing what marine mammals are present, that we should probably contribute to the response to the spill in terms of monitoring sperm whales, dolphins, baleen whales, what animals are present and how does the oil spill affect them.
Ethan Roth. I'm a research engineer with the Whale Acoustics Lab at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Here we are in the Gulf of Mexico aboard the RV Odyssey. We're heading towards the Deepwater Horizon site where we have a hydrophone seafloor recorder that we're going to be recovering the data today. The HARP is a high-frequency acoustic recording package. It's basically a hydrophone that sits on the seafloor and autonomously monitors the underwater sound field and records it to hard drives that we can then recover and post-process in the lab. We successfully recovered the HARP, which was the hydrophone sitting on the seafloor. I was able to look at the data, which ended up recording for almost 4 months until August 28th. I was able to find sperm whale clicks among anthropogenic activity, and I proceeded to take the data out and refurbish the instrument so we could redeploy it.
The question then is what impact that had on the presence of marine mammals at that site. And one thing we can see right away, we really haven't analyzed the data in detail, but we can see that marine mammals like sperm whales and dolphins remained in the vicinity of the well, in the area of the oil throughout that time period. So at this point, we need to do a more detailed look at how many animals, do their numbers increase or decrease, and the kind of behavior. Are they still foraging? Are they just passing through, or are they actually there still foraging during the time of the spill? So, the government has paid for all of this technology. So I really did have strongly that feeling that because we had a unique set of instruments and also analysis tools to study marine mammals, that we really needed to put that technology to work in the context of the oil spill.
Like Hildebrand, other Scripps researchers who participated in monitoring the leak have ongoing projects in the Gulf, many funded by BP. But most noted that the region had little infrastructure in place for tracking ocean conditions when the leak started. Oceanographer Eric Terrell's group traveled to the Gulf to bring 3 offline radar stations back to life. The radar data allowed spill responders to observe and forecast the paths of surface currents that sent oil towards shore. Physical oceanographer Dan Rudnick launched a self-propelled glider called Spray to the area in an attempt to image subsurface plumes of oil and to provide basic data on ocean conditions.
So our mission was really to go out and measure basic oceanographic conditions, temperature, salinity, and currents. And knowing these currents is important because then you know where the oil is going. These data were sent to a variety of places, especially to modeling centers, which use these data to keep their models on track. By having a system in place that automatically gives us the ability to respond to events. The counterexample would be either having no system or having instruments on the shelf that you think might be ready once you have something happen. I think the only way to assure that you have working instruments ready to go is to be using them. The saddest thing is a piece of oceanographic equipment sitting on the shelf doing nothing. I hope that our response will be viewed as positive, and I hope that there will be an understanding that there is value to society from having ocean observations going continuously.
Beyond instrument deployments, Scripps researchers have provided expertise in putting the Gulf oil leak in perspective on a worldwide basis.
I've been to Mobile, Alabama, and Dauphin Island and those places, and they are some of the most exquisitely beautiful wetlands in the world, and the Gulf Coast has something like a third of the surviving wetlands of the United States, and we're looking at a situation where the majority of those wetlands may be killed, and the time frame for their recovery will be measured in decades. The surface part of this spill is, I think, going to play out in a way very similarly to a much, much smaller spill that occurred in Panama. It wasn't hard to see where it had been because fairly soon all the mangrove trees that had been oiled died, and so if you flew in an airplane and you looked down, you saw this gray-black zone of dead mangroves and dead reef flat where the oil had been, in contrast to the bright green, healthy mangrove way to the shore or along the coast.
Yet with all the damage caused by the Gulf oil disaster, Jackson believes other rising threats to the ocean's health are far more serious.
If there's any silver lining in the oil spill, it's that it might make us wake up to the magnitude of what we're dealing with. As I said before, the oil spill is really a relatively minor problem, as horrifically dirty and disgusting as it is, as horrible as the death of all those seabirds and turtles and dolphins is, and it's really, really bad. But when it's gone, the overfishing and the other forms of pollution and climate change will still be there and still getting worse every day, as they have been continuously. And so I think we have to hope that there will be an increased awareness of the fragility of the ocean that will emerge from the horror that people have experienced about what we can see, so that there's a new seriousness about the magnitude of the other problems.
This has been a presentation of Scripps Institution of Oceanography at UC San Diego.